Alright, so we're hopefully getting near the end of Project L's kind of rear end upgrades. So here's where we're at right now. So the chassis reinforcement's been welded in. Yesterday I reinstalled the gas tank, battery, and a lot of the interior, made sure the car actually started, so the fuel system is working. Car fired right up. Then I assembled the diff into the subframe assembly, and now I just finished torquing down all the bolts, so your control arm to the subframe, trailing arm to the subframe, the diff bolts. Now I'm filling the diff with diff oil, and then I'm going to bolt the axles back onto the diff and then start trying to raise the whole assembly back into the car. So here's where we're at right now. Satin Lagoon everything, subframe, control arms, diff cover, diff brace, pretty cool. I didn't know, but these Super Pro poly bushings I'm using are actually also blue. It's a nice touch, it's kind of fun. I'm gonna keep filling the diff here, and then we're gonna start trying to wheel this thing back onto the car. Made a lot of progress yesterday, made a lot of progress the day before. Gonna keep powering on. A lot of the interior is back together. That was mainly just kind of clean up and free up some space. Since all the welding was done, I was able to kind of put the trunk interior back in there along some other parts for storage, so that's coming back together. Getting under the car. Alright, so you can see chassis reinforcements have been welded into the car, primed and painted. We don't have any issues with rust. It rains like once a year here, so I doubt that'd be an issue anyway. Yesterday I also put the fuel system back in the car. When we were welding, we obviously had to remove the tank completely, disconnect all the fuel lines, make sure there was no fuel vapor or anything floating around so Tim wouldn't catch on fire when he was welding onto the car. So yesterday I put the tank back in the car, filled it with about 5 gallons of fuel. The car started right up, which is good. Something got messed up there. Obviously, in order to do that, I had to put the battery back in, so that went in as well. So it's coming back together. Today, hopefully, we can get the subframe and rear axle assembly back into the car. So that is the next step. Unfortunately, I'm by myself today, so I'm not sure how much I'll be able to film, because I'll be kind of working my butt off to kind of manhandle this 150-pound or whatever rear axle back into the car, but I'll try my best. Alright, so just before I get ready to put the subframe assembly back in the car, I wanted to kind of show you one quick thing. We've been putting cardboard down under the car to work on, because it when you're working under a 20-year-old car, all the filth and grime falls off and just makes it pretty miserable. But you can see all the weld splatter, undercoating, and 20 years of filth that falls off onto these pieces of cardboard we've been using. I actually just swept up the floor because it was so bad. All the metal shavings from the welding and the cutting and the grinding was getting pretty bad. So it's nice to have a decent working area for once. So let's grab some jacks and try and wheel the subframe over here. The subframe assembly from the backyard under the car. That was quite an ordeal, to say the least. I also installed the Super Pro subframe, poly subframe bushings. Now the real hard task begins, as I need to figure out a way to lift the whole subframe assembly up into place. The only jacks I have are regular floor jacks. I don't have any like a machine, like a transmission type jack or a motorcycle jack. So this is going to be very difficult, probably the most difficult part of this process. This rear axle assembly altogether weighs about, I'd guess, 200 to 300 pounds. I'd guess about 200 pounds. And obviously it's quite large and ungainly. It's like it's a very small thing, so it's very difficult to move. Let alone lift up about 2 feet, so I can line up subframe bushings to the chassis. This is going to be quite an ordeal. Alright, so getting the subframe assembly back up under the car actually has thus far been going okay. I want to kind of show you my technique since this is kind of the super DIY way of doing it. I use 3 jacks. I knew that I wanted my big jack under the diff as the middle of the assembly. It kind of has the most weight bearing. And then I kind of thought, well, the subframe assembly is going to want to tip because there's not many flat points to kind of jack up on and keep it supported. So I kind of did some sort of triangulation. So at first, I used this left jack on the near subframe point because this is flat, you can jack up on that. It wants to tip, obviously, so you have to use the right jack in a right front position to kind of triangulate it. And now that I've got it kind of high enough up, I at least have the outside carrier supported by the shock bolt. I'm going to try and do the same thing on the other side if I can get it lined up. That kind of at least gives me something to lean on. Thus far, it looks like I'm a little bit off in terms of my angle of attack, because I'm going to kind of need to shift the whole assembly around. You can see this one's pretty far off. This corner needs to go forward. So now it's just a matter of playing with the jacks and hopefully kind of getting things lined up piece by piece to hopefully make it a bit easier. If I can get the shock bolted up on this side, that'll at least kind of help locate the right side of the subframe assembly. So I'm going to do that next. Hey everyone, sorry for the footage to end. Very annoying. I actually filmed the entire process of putting the subframe back into the car and doing the full reassembly, but it turns out the GoPro's battery died right after that last clip. So let me fill you in. In the video, you'll see that I had all the subframe and diff bushings inside the subframe assembly, which is great. The only problem is the subframe bushings, although they look the same, are not the same. The difference is you can see there's a metal collar inside the inside the polyurethane bushing. Those collars are different front to back, and SuperPro gave me a diagram that explained which one goes where. I was just too stupid to look at it until I had the whole thing reassembled. So I actually had to lower the subframe again and swap all the bushings out and do the process over again. Kind of a pain in the butt, but as long as you actually read the instructions, unlike me, it's a non-issue. Excuse me, can't even talk. But anyway, once I got the subframe into place, everything kind of fell together really quickly. I had the whole car reassembled within an hour or so. So subframe back in place, rear suspension bolted back together, drive shaft, end of the transmission. Anything else I may be forgetting right now, kind of on the spot. Really feel kind of dumb right now. My brain's kind of frazzled. But anyway, the whole car went back together, and as I mentioned before, I'd already made sure that the fuel system was working correctly, and the car fired right up, which was a total relief considering it had been sitting on jack stands for all this whole process. I got to drive the car around, and wow, with the welded diff and all the polyurethane bushings on the rear end, it's pretty brutal. But that's what you got to do for drifting. But yes, I finally got the car done, really excited, and as I mentioned, I have a drift event coming up very soon, so I'm very glad to have got this all done. Yes, so thank you for watching along with the process. Hopefully I have some pictures I can fill in to explain better. I can put in the edit, but in the interim, thank you for watching and have a great day.